The history of Jewish persecution is filled with moments of intense suffering, from unfair laws to brutal genocides. While the Holocaust stands as a significant marker in this dark timeline, many massacres and violent acts targeting Jews often go unnoticed. This Lesson 4 seeks to highlight some of these significant but lesser-known incidents, including the Nelly Massacre of 1980, in which is the year I was born, the pogroms of the early 1900s, and the systematic atrocities perpetrated by Adolf Hitler during the Holocaust. Nelly Massacre. On February 18, 1983, a heartbreaking incident unfolded in Yemen, known as the Nelly Massacre, which remains a significant and tragic chapter in the history of the Jewish community in Yemen. This incident was marked by a desperate attempt by a group of Jews to escape the rising hostility and anti-Semitic sentiments that had been increasingly prevalent in Yemen during that time. The socio-political climate was fraught with tension, and many Yemenite Jews found themselves facing escalating persecution, discrimination, and violence, which compelled them to seek a safer and more secure life away from their homeland. The community had deep roots in Yemen, with a rich cultural and religious heritage that spanned centuries. However, as hostility mounted, the hope of finding refuge in Israel became a beacon of light for many. This aspiration was not merely about physical safety. It was also about preserving their identity and ensuring a future for their children in a land where they could practice their faith freely. The journey to escape was fraught with peril, and many families were torn apart in their efforts to flee the oppressive environment. The Nelly Massacre specifically refers to a tragic event in which a group of Yemenite Jews, driven by their desire for safety, attempted to reach Israel but faced devastating consequences. The details of the massacre are harrowing as the group encountered violent opposition and hostility during their escape. The aftermath of this incident left deep scars on the community, further highlighting the dangers faced by those who sought to leave Yemen in search of a better life. The Nelly Massacre serves as a poignant reminder of the struggles faced by the Jewish people in Yemen and the lengths to which they went to preserve their lives and heritage amidst adversity. As these Jews set out on a perilous journey filled with hope and desperation, they were unfortunately misled by a smuggler, a figure who preyed on their vulnerability by promising them safety and a chance at a new life away from the dangers they faced. This smuggler, who presented himself as a guide, assured them that he had the knowledge and connections necessary to navigate the treacherous landscape that lay ahead. However, unbeknownst to them, his intentions were far from noble. During their attempt to flee as they traversed through rugged terrains and hostile territories, they were ambushed by local tribesmen who viewed their passage as an intrusion into their land. This sudden attack resulted in a tragic confrontation that claimed the lives of several individuals, with historical estimates suggesting that approximately 20 people were killed in this horrific incident. Furthermore, many others suffered severe injuries, while countless more went missing, their fates uncertain. The aftermath of this ambush left families shattered, as loved ones mourned the loss of those who had embarked on this journey in search of safety and a brighter future. Communities were devastated, grappling with the emotional and psychological scars left by the violence, as they struggled to comprehend the senselessness of the tragedy that had unfolded before them. The echoes of this event would resonate for years to come, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those fleeing persecution and the often treacherous paths they must navigate in their quest for refuge. Historical Yemenite village that was a setting for Jewish persecution. The Nelly Massacre serves as a stark reminder of the enduring struggles faced by Yemenite Jews. Acknowledging these tragic stories allows us to grasp the complexity of Jewish persecution throughout history. The early 1900s, a time of turmoil and suffering. The early 20th century was marked by significant turmoil for Jews, particularly in Eastern Europe, where they faced unprecedented challenges and threats to their existence. This period was characterized by widespread pogroms, violent riots specifically aimed at targeting Jewish communities, which became alarmingly common and increasingly brutal. These violent outbursts often emerged from a complex web of social and economic tensions that were prevalent in the region. The aftermath of World War I, coupled with the socio-political upheaval that followed, exacerbated existing prejudices and fueled animosity towards Jewish populations. During this time, Jews frequently found themselves unjustly cast as scapegoats, facing blame for a variety of broader societal issues, including economic hardship, political instability, and social unrest. In many instances, local leaders or influential figures would incite violence against Jews, exploiting these tensions to divert attention from their own failures and to unify non-Jewish populations against a common enemy. The pogroms were often marked by horrific acts of violence, including physical assaults, property destruction, and even murder, leaving entire communities devastated and in fear for their lives. The psychological impact of these events was profound, as Jewish families were torn apart and many were forced to flee their homes in search of safety. The pervasive atmosphere of fear and uncertainty led to a significant migration of Jews from Eastern Europe to other regions, including the United States and Palestine, as they sought refuge from the violence and persecution. This migration not only altered the demographic landscape of these communities, but also had lasting effects on Jewish identity and culture as displaced individuals and families struggled to rebuild their lives in unfamiliar environments. Moreover, the pogroms and the surrounding socio-economic conditions contributed to the rise of various Jewish movements, including Zionism, which sought to establish a national homeland for the Jewish people. The urgency of these movements was heightened by the realization that assimilation into the broader society was often met with hostility rather than acceptance. As a result, the early 20th century became a pivotal period for Jews in Eastern Europe, marked by both the struggle for survival and the quest for identity in the face of overwhelming adversity. A significant and harrowing event in the history of Eastern Europe was the 1903 Kishinev pogrom, which unfolded in what is now known as Moldova. This tragic episode was ignited by a series of unfounded rumors and baseless accusations against the Jewish community, which falsely claimed that Jews were involved in the murder of a Christian boy. The resulting violence erupted in April 1903, leading to a brutal assault on the Jewish population of Kishinev. Over the course of this horrific event, approximately 49 Jews lost their lives, while hundreds more sustained serious injuries, both physical and psychological. The pogrom was marked by extreme brutality as rioters looted, vandalized, and destroyed Jewish homes and businesses, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The aftermath of the pogrom was equally alarming, with more than 1,500 Jewish homes being vandalized or completely destroyed. This destruction was not merely physical, it represented a profound assault on the very fabric of Jewish life in the community. Families were left homeless, livelihoods were shattered, and the sense of safety and security that had once existed was irreparably damaged. The local authorities, who were expected to protect all citizens, instead turned a blind eye to the violence, demonstrating a shocking level of indifference and complicity that only exacerbated the situation. This lack of intervention by the government highlighted the systemic anti-Semitism prevalent at the time and further alienated the Jewish community from the broader society. In the wake of the Kishinev pogrom, the Jewish community faced an existential crisis that prompted a massive wave of emigration. The sheer terror and trauma experienced during this event served as a catalyst for approximately 2 million Jews to flee Eastern Europe by the year 1914. Many sought refuge in more welcoming lands, particularly in the United States and Western Europe, where they hoped to find safety and a chance to rebuild their lives free from persecution. The Kishinev pogrom thus not only illustrated the violent realities faced by Jews in Eastern Europe, but also marked a pivotal moment in Jewish history, as it underscored the urgent need for a safe haven and the search for a place where they could live without fear of violence and discrimination. Memorial site dedicated to victims of early 20th century pogroms. During this period, many Jews sought refuge in countries like the United States, although they often faced hostility and discrimination there as well. The Holocaust, a systematic annihilation. The Holocaust is perhaps the most devastating chapter in the history of Jewish persecution, characterized by unimaginable suffering and loss. During this dark period, which spanned from 1941 to 1945, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime orchestrated a systematic campaign aimed at the complete annihilation of the Jewish people. This horrific genocide was marked by the establishment of concentration camps, ghettos, and mass extermination sites where millions of Jews were subjected to inhumane conditions, forced labor, and ultimately murder. The scale of this atrocity is staggering, with estimates suggesting that approximately 6 million innocent lives were brutally extinguished, representing about two-thirds of the Jewish population in Europe at that time. The Holocaust did not only affect the Jewish community, it also targeted various other groups deemed undesirable by the Nazis, including Romani people, disabled individuals, Polish people, Soviet prisoners of war, and many others. The ideology that fueled these actions was rooted in deeply ingrained anti-Semitism and a belief in Aryan supremacy, which led to widespread complicity and collaboration across occupied territories. The repercussions of the Holocaust extend far beyond the immediate loss of life. The trauma experienced by survivors and the profound impact on Jewish communities worldwide continue to resonate to this day. The Holocaust serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of hatred, intolerance, and discrimination, emphasizing the importance of remembrance and education to prevent such atrocities from occurring in the future. The legacy of this horrific event is preserved through memorials, museums, and educational programs, ensuring that the stories of those who suffered and perished are never forgotten. Concentration camps, including the infamous Auschwitz-Birkenau, became notorious as sites of unimaginable terror and brutality during one of history's darkest periods. These camps were not merely detention facilities. They were places where countless individuals were subjected to extreme suffering, dehumanization, and systematic extermination. Auschwitz-Birkenau, in particular, stands out as a grim symbol of the Holocaust, a complex that operated from 1940 to 1945, where an estimated 1.1 million people tragically lost their lives. This staggering figure represents a diverse group of victims, including Jews, Romani people, Polish political prisoners, Soviet POWs, and many others who were persecuted for their ethnicity, beliefs, or sexual orientation. The conditions within these camps were horrific. Inmates faced overcrowding, starvation, forced labor, and brutal treatment from the guards. Many were subjected to inhumane medical experiments in the name of pseudo-scientific research, which further exemplified the depths of cruelty that humans can inflict upon one another. The psychological trauma experienced by survivors and the families of victims continues to resonate through generations, serving as a haunting reminder of the atrocities committed. The Holocaust serves as a stark illustration of the dire consequences of unchecked hatred and prejudice. It underscores the importance of vigilance against discrimination and intolerance in all forms. The systematic annihilation of millions based on their identity reflects not only a failure of humanity, but also a chilling warning about the potential for such ideologies to resurface if left unchallenged. The legacy of Auschwitz and other concentration camps demands that we remember the past, educate future generations, and actively combat the seeds of hatred that can lead to such catastrophic outcomes. Many mistakenly think the term Holocaust only refers to the camps or events during World War II. However, anti-Semitic violence began long before the war, evident in earlier pogroms and rising anti-Jewish sentiment throughout Europe, which paved the way for the horrendous atrocities of the Nazi regime. In addition to the previously mentioned events, many other massacres against Jews deserve recognition but often remain overlooked. Two notable examples include, in August 1929, a period marked by escalating tensions in British-controlled Palestine, a volatile situation erupted into violence that would have lasting repercussions for the region. The catalyst for this upheaval was a rumor that spread like wildfire, claiming that a Jewish individual had desecrated a sacred Muslim site, specifically the Al-Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron, which is revered by both Muslims and Jews. This unfounded allegation ignited a fierce and violent reaction among the Arab population, leading to a riot that quickly spiraled out of control. The chaos that ensued resulted in the tragic deaths of 67 Jews, a significant loss that reverberated throughout the Jewish community in Palestine and beyond. In addition to the fatalities, many more individuals sustained injuries, some of which were severe, leaving lasting scars on the victims and their families. The violence did not stop with the loss of life. Jewish homes and synagogues were also subjected to brutal attacks, with many structures being vandalized, looted, and set ablaze. This destruction not only represented a physical loss, but also symbolized a deepening divide between Jewish and Arab communities in the region, highlighting the fragile coexistence that had previously characterized life in Palestine. The events of that fateful August would mark a significant turning point in the history of the area, contributing to the ongoing conflict and shaping the future dynamics of Jewish-Arab relations in the subsequent decades. The Farhud, a term that translates to violent dispossession in Arabic, represents a dark chapter in the history of Iraq, particularly for the Jewish community residing there. This tragic event unfolded during the Jewish holiday of Shavuot in June 1941, a time typically associated with celebration and religious observance. However, this particular year was marked by a disturbing shift in societal attitudes, fueled by rising pro-Nazi sentiments that had begun to permeate various segments of Iraqi society. The atmosphere of hostility and suspicion towards the Jewish population escalated dramatically, culminating in widespread violence and chaos. The violence that erupted during the Farhud was not a spontaneous outburst, but rather a culmination of years of growing anti-Semitism, exacerbated by the political climate of the time. The backdrop included the influence of Nazi propaganda, which had found its way into Iraq, igniting existing prejudices and inciting hatred against Jews. As a result, a horrific pogrom ensued, leading to the brutal deaths of more than 180 Jews, although estimates of the actual number of victims vary and some sources suggest that the toll may have been even higher. During this harrowing period, countless homes were set ablaze and the destruction extended far beyond mere physical property. The Jewish community, which had been an integral part of Iraqi society for centuries, faced immense hardship and loss. Families were torn apart, livelihoods were destroyed, and the sense of security that had once characterized their existence was shattered. The aftermath of the Farhud left deep scars within the community as survivors grappled with the trauma of violence and loss, and many were forced to flee their homes in search of safety and stability. The Farhud serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of coexistence and the devastating consequences of hatred and intolerance. It not only marked a turning point in the lives of the Jewish people in Iraq, but also signaled the beginning of a significant decline in the Jewish population of the country. In the years that followed, many Jews chose to emigrate, seeking refuge from the rising tide of anti-Semitism and violence. The legacy of the Farhud continues to resonate, as it is commemorated in the collective memory of the Jewish diaspora, and serves as a crucial historical reference point in discussions about persecution and human rights. In July 1941, a tragic and horrific event unfolded in the small town of Jedwabne, Poland, where over 300 Jews were brutally murdered in a shocking act of violence perpetrated by local non-Jewish residents. This massacre did not occur in isolation. Rather, it was part of a broader context of escalating anti-Semitic sentiment and violence that plagued Europe during the tumultuous years of World War II and the Holocaust. The events in Jedwabne highlight the complexities of intercommunal relationships during this dark period, where fear, suspicion, and long-standing prejudices often led to tragic consequences. The murders in Jedwabne were not only a reflection of the local population's complicity in the violence against their Jewish neighbors, but also illustrated the broader societal dynamics at play. Many non-Jewish Poles, influenced by the Nazi regime's propaganda and the chaotic circumstances of the war, found themselves in a moral quandary. Some residents participated actively in the violence, while others stood by, either out of fear or indifference, as their fellow townspeople were subjected to horrific acts of brutality. The aftermath of the Jedwabne massacre sparked considerable controversy and debate, particularly regarding the role of local populations in the Holocaust. For years, the narrative surrounding the event was often overshadowed by a collective memory that focused on Nazi atrocities, leading to a reluctance to confront the uncomfortable truths about local collaboration and complicity. This reluctance was challenged in the late 20th century, particularly with the publication of Jan Thomas Gross's book Neighbors, which brought renewed attention to the events in Jedwabne and ignited discussions about Polish-Jewish relations during the war. The discussions surrounding the Jedwabne massacre have since evolved into a broader examination of historical memory, collective guilt, and the need for reconciliation. The event serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of human behavior in times of crisis, where ordinary individuals may commit extraordinary acts of violence against their neighbors. The legacy of Jedwabne continues to resonate today as it prompts ongoing reflection on the moral responsibilities of individuals and communities in the face of hatred and intolerance. The Elaine massacre, which occurred in 1919 in Phillips County, Arkansas, stands as one of the most tragic and significant events in the history of racial violence in the United States. This horrific incident was rooted in the complex social and economic tensions that existed in the post-war World War I era, particularly in the context of the African American community's struggle for civil rights and equality. Following the war, many African Americans sought better opportunities and improved living conditions, leading to increased competition with white residents, particularly in the agricultural economy of the South. In the fall of 1919, a group of African American sharecroppers in Elaine organized a meeting to discuss the possibility of forming a union to advocate for fair wages and better working conditions. This gathering, however, was met with fierce opposition from white landowners who felt threatened by the idea of organized labor among black workers. Tensions escalated dramatically when a confrontation occurred between a white man and a black man, resulting in the death of the white man, which ignited fears and anger among the white population. In response to the perceived threat posed by the black community, white vigilantes and law enforcement officials mobilized, leading to a violent crackdown on the African American residents of Elaine. Over the course of several days, a brutal campaign of violence ensued, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 100 to 200 black individuals. Many others were wounded, and numerous families were displaced from their homes as the violence spread. The massacre was marked by horrific acts, including lynchings, shootings, and arson, leaving a lasting scar on the community and the nation. The aftermath of the Elaine massacre was characterized by a lack of accountability for the perpetrators, as local and state authorities largely ignored the violence and its victims. In the years that followed, the event was largely forgotten or overlooked in mainstream historical narratives, overshadowed by other events of the time. However, the massacre has since been recognized as a critical moment in the history of racial violence in America, highlighting the systemic racism and inequality that persisted in the Jim Crow South. In recent years, efforts have been made to commemorate the victims of the Elaine massacre and to educate the public about this dark chapter in American history. Memorials, historical markers, and educational programs aim to bring awareness to the events of 1919 and to honor the lives lost during this tragic episode. The Elaine massacre serves as a poignant reminder of the ongoing struggle for racial justice and equality in the United States, underscoring the importance of acknowledging and confronting the legacy of violence and discrimination that has shaped the nation's history. A tragic and significant event in the annals of history refers to a violent confrontation that took place in the early 19th century, specifically in the year 1832. This incident occurred in a small settlement known as Oske, which was located in what is now considered the Midwestern region of the United States. The massacre involved a brutal attack on a group of Native Americans by settlers and militia members, driven by a complex interplay of factors including territorial expansion, cultural misunderstandings, and escalating tensions between the indigenous populations and European settlers. The backdrop to the Oske massacre is rooted in the broader context of westward expansion, a phenomenon that characterized much of American history during this period. As settlers moved into new territories, they often encroached upon lands that had been inhabited by Native American tribes for centuries. The arrival of these settlers brought about significant changes to the land, including the disruption of traditional hunting grounds, the introduction of new agricultural practices, and the spread of diseases to which native populations had little immunity. These changes contributed to rising tensions as indigenous groups sought to protect their ancestral lands and way of life from encroachment. In the case of the Oske massacre, tensions reached a boiling point when a series of misunderstandings and provocations escalated into violence. Reports suggest that a dispute over land rights and resources was a significant factor leading up to the massacre. Local settlers, feeling threatened by the presence of Native Americans in the area, formed militias to assert their claims and defend their interests. The situation was further exacerbated by inflammatory rhetoric from both sides, which painted the other as a threat to safety and stability. On the day of the massacre, a group of settlers, armed and emboldened by a sense of entitlement to the land, launched an unprovoked attack on a nearby Native American village. The assault was characterized by its brutality, with many innocent lives lost, including women and children. The violence was not only a physical assault, but also a psychological blow to the community, instilling fear and mistrust that would linger for generations. The aftermath of the Oski massacre had profound implications for the relationship between Native Americans and settlers in the region. It served as a catalyst for further violence and conflict, leading to retaliatory attacks and a cycle of retribution that would define interactions between the two groups for years to come. In addition, the massacre highlighted the urgent need for dialogue and understanding, as well as the consequences of unchecked aggression and prejudice. In the historical narrative, the Oski massacre is often cited as a poignant example of the tragic consequences of colonial expansion and the impact of cultural misunderstandings. It serves as a reminder of the complexities of American history, where the pursuit of progress often came at a devastating cost to indigenous populations. Today, the Oski massacre is remembered not only for its immediate impact, but also for the lessons it imparts about the importance of empathy, respect for cultural differences, and the need for reconciliation in the face of historical injustices. The Munich massacre refers to a tragic and harrowing event that unfolded during the 1972 Summer Olympics held in Munich, West Germany. This incident, which took place on September 5, 1972, involved a group of Palestinian terrorists from the Black September organization who took 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team hostage. The motivations behind this violent act were deeply rooted in the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with the terrorists demanding the release of over 200 Palestinian prisoners held in Israel. The events began early in the morning when the terrorists broke into the Olympic Village where the Israeli athletes were staying. They managed to overpower the security personnel and gain access to the athletes' quarters. The hostages included athletes, coaches, and officials, all of whom were taken captive under the threat of violence. As news of the hostage situation spread, it sent shockwaves around the world, capturing the attention of global media and leading to a tense standoff between the terrorists and German authorities. The German government faced immense pressure to resolve the situation without resorting to violence, and efforts were made to negotiate with the terrorists. However, the negotiations were fraught with challenges, as the terrorists were determined to carry out their demands, while authorities were equally adamant about not conceding to terrorism. The situation escalated dramatically when the terrorists attempted to transfer the hostages to a nearby airport, leading to a chaotic confrontation with German police. In a tragic turn of events, the rescue operation that followed was poorly executed and resulted in the deaths of all 11 Israeli hostages. The operation was marred by confusion, lack of proper planning, and inadequate intelligence, leading to a catastrophic outcome. The massacre not only shocked the world, but also had profound implications for international relations and the perception of terrorism. In the aftermath of the Munich massacre, the Israeli government responded with a campaign known as Operation Wrath of God, aimed at tracking down and eliminating those responsible for the attack. This operation highlighted the lengths to which nations would go to protect their citizens and retaliate against acts of terrorism. The massacre profoundly impacted the Olympic Games, leading to increased security measures and a re-evaluation of how international sporting events would be managed in the future. The Munich massacre remains a poignant reminder of the complexities of political conflict, the human cost of terrorism, and the ongoing struggle for peace in the region. It serves as a significant historical event that continues to resonate today, influencing discussions around security, diplomacy, and the role of international organizations in conflict resolution. The legacy of the Munich massacre is one of tragedy, loss, and the urgent need for dialogue in the pursuit of lasting peace. The Basel Massacre. The Basel Massacre in 1349 was a tragic and significant event in history. occurred during a tumultuous period marked by social unrest and widespread disease. This massacre, which unfolded in the context of the broader societal disruptions caused by the Black Plague, serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of human life and the extreme measures that societies can resort to in times of crisis. The Black Plague, which swept through Europe in the mid-14th century, decimated populations and instilled a pervasive sense of fear and paranoia among the populace. As communities struggled to cope with the overwhelming death toll and the breakdown of social order, scapegoating became a common response, leading to violent acts against marginalized groups. The Basel massacre specifically highlights the intersection of fear, prejudice, and desperation during the plague years. In many regions, including those affected by the plague, minority groups were often blamed for the spread of the disease, fueling a climate of distrust and hostility. The massacre itself was characterized by the brutal targeting of these groups, who were wrongfully accused of causing the plague through various means, including alleged poisoning of wells or malicious sorcery. The events leading up to the massacre were steeped in misinformation and hysteria, as communities sought to find someone to hold accountable for the suffering they were enduring. In the aftermath of the Basel massacre, the consequences were devastating, not only for the immediate victims and their families, but also for the societal fabric as a whole. The act of violence further entrenched divisions within communities, leading to long-lasting repercussions that extended beyond the immediate crisis of the plague. As historians analyze the Basel massacre, they often draw connections to the broader themes of human behavior in times of crisis, examining how fear can distort perceptions and lead to tragic outcomes. This event serves as a critical case study in understanding the social dynamics of the 14th century, particularly how the Black Plague acted as a catalyst for violence and social upheaval. Ultimately, the Basel massacre stands as a stark illustration of how societies can devolve into chaos under the strain of fear and uncertainty, particularly during catastrophic events like the Black Plague. It invites reflection on the lessons learned from history regarding the treatment of vulnerable populations during times of crisis, and the importance of fostering compassion and understanding in the face of fear-induced violence. The Tulsa Race Massacre, which occurred over the course of 18 hours from May 31st to June 1st, 1921, stands as one of the most devastating events in American history, particularly in the context of racial violence and injustice. This tragic incident took place in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a thriving community known as Black Wall Street, due to its prosperous African-American-owned businesses, vibrant culture, and strong sense of community. The Greenwood district was a symbol of African-American success and resilience, flourishing in a time when segregation and discrimination were rampant across the United States. The catalyst for the massacre was an incident involving a young black man named Dick Rowland and a young white woman named Sarah Page. On May 30th, 1921, Rowland entered an elevator where Page worked, and the circumstances of their encounter remain unclear, but it resulted in Rowland being accused of assaulting Page. The ensuing media frenzy, fueled by sensationalist journalism, incited racial tensions in the already volatile environment of Tulsa. Misinformation spread rapidly, leading to a call for violence against the black community. As tensions escalated, a group of white residents gathered, armed and intent on lynching Rowland. In response, a group of black residents, including many World War I veterans, assembled to protect Rowland and ensure his safety. This confrontation between the two groups quickly escalated into widespread violence. Over the course of that fateful night, white mobs descended upon Greenwood, looting, burning, and destroying homes, businesses, and churches. The destruction was extensive, with estimates suggesting that over 1,000 homes were burned to the ground and the once thriving community was left in ruins. The violence resulted in a staggering loss of life, with estimates of black casualties ranging from dozens to as many as 300 individuals. Many were killed outright, while others were injured and left to fend for themselves amidst the chaos. The aftermath of the massacre saw thousands of black residents displaced, forced to seek refuge in makeshift camps and shelters, as their homes and livelihoods had been obliterated. The local government and law enforcement largely failed to intervene during the violence and, in many cases, were complicit in the attacks against the black community. In the wake of the massacre, the survivors faced not only the devastation of their community, but also the challenge of rebuilding their lives in a society that largely ignored their suffering. The event was largely omitted from historical narratives for decades, with many survivors and their descendants left without acknowledgement or reparations for the atrocities they endured. It wasn't until recent years that the Tulsa Race Massacre began to receive the recognition it deserves, with efforts to memorialize the victims, educate the public, and address the historical injustices that occurred. The legacy of the Tulsa Race Massacre continues to resonate today, serving as a stark reminder of the systemic racism and violence that has plagued the United States throughout its history. The events of 1921 highlight the importance of acknowledging and confronting the past, as well as the ongoing struggle for racial equality and justice in America. As communities work towards healing and reconciliation, the memory of those lost in the massacre remains a powerful call to action for future generations. The stories that matter. While these violent events are meticulously documented in various historical records, academic studies, and personal testimonies, they often receive far less recognition than they truly warrant, both in public discourse and in educational curricula. The narratives of survivors, which encompass their personal experiences, emotional turmoil, and the profound challenges they face in the aftermath of such trauma, play an essential role in understanding the events themselves. These narratives not only provide insight into the immediate impact of violence, but also illuminate the complex psychological and social repercussions that extend far beyond the initial occurrences. The strength exhibited by survivors as they navigate their healing journeys and strive to reclaim their lives serves as a powerful testament to human resilience. Furthermore, these stories are crucial for comprehending the lasting effects on subsequent generations, as the trauma experienced by one generation can ripple through time, affecting family dynamics, community relationships, and societal norms. By amplifying the voices of survivors and recognizing their struggles, we can foster a deeper understanding of the historical context and the ongoing implications of such violent events, ultimately contributing to a more informed and empathetic society. Communities often unite around the stories of those who survived these atrocities. Museums and educational programs aim to keep these stories alive, emphasizing that remembering events such as the Nellie Massacre is crucial for continued acknowledgement and understanding the importance of commemoration and education. Education remains vital in ensuring that these dark chapters are not forgotten. Schools across the globe have committed to teaching about the Holocaust and other atrocious acts against the Jewish community. Holocaust Remembrance Day is observed in many countries as a tribute to the lives lost during this grim period. Museums dedicated to Jewish history serve as critical spaces for learning and reflection on the impacts of prejudice and intolerance. Memorial stone commemorating Holocaust victims. It is our collective duty to help future generations recognize and understand these histories. By focusing on education and commemoration, we keep the memories of the victims alive, promoting a message of tolerance and acceptance, honoring the past. The history of violence against Jews represents a deeply painful and complex subject, marked by a series of significant and tragic events that have left indelible scars on the collective memory of not only the Jewish community, but also the broader fabric of human history. Among these harrowing occurrences are the Nellie Massacre, a brutal episode that took place in 1920 in the city of Baku, where a wave of anti-Jewish violence resulted in the loss of countless lives and the destruction of homes and communities. This event, alongside the pogroms that erupted across Eastern Europe in the early 1900s, illustrates the persistent and pervasive nature of anti-Semitic sentiment, which often erupted into violent outbursts fueled by prejudice and misinformation. The Holocaust, which stands as one of the most horrific genocides in history, serves as a stark reminder of the extreme consequences of unchecked hatred and systemic discrimination, resulting in the murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. Bringing attention to these lesser-known tragedies is not merely an act of remembrance, it is a vital endeavor that allows us to honor the lives of those lost and acknowledge the profound suffering endured by countless individuals and entire communities throughout history. Each story, each victim represents a life interrupted, a family shattered, and a culture nearly erased. Awareness and education about these events are paramount, not only for the Jewish community, which continues to grapple with the legacies of these atrocities, but for humanity as a whole. By understanding the historical context and the societal conditions that led to such violence, we can better recognize the warning signs of hate and intolerance that persist in various forms today. By sharing these stories, we foster a future built on understanding, empathy, and peace. It is through the retelling of these narratives that we can cultivate a collective consciousness that values human dignity and the importance of standing against injustice. We must commit to memorializing these dark chapters in our history, ensuring that the lessons of resilience, compassion, and the necessity of vigilance against hatred continue to guide us all. Engaging in open dialogues, promoting educational initiatives, and supporting memorials dedicated to the victims are essential steps in preventing the repetition of such atrocities. In doing so, we not only pay tribute to those who suffered, but also empower future generations to build a world where such violence is unequivocally rejected and where mutual respect and understanding prevail. Who are the real Jews? The intersection of Black identity and Jewish heritage. The question of who the real Jews are has been a topic of significant discussion and debate throughout history, particularly in the context of identity, culture, and religion. Among the various narratives surrounding Jewish identity, the contributions and historical presence of Black people within the Jewish community often come into focus. This intersection of Black identity and Jewish heritage is rich and complex, revealing a tapestry of shared experiences, struggles, and cultural contributions that have shaped both communities. Historically, Jews of African descent have existed in various regions, including North Africa, Ethiopia, and even parts of Europe and the Americas. The Beta Israel community in Ethiopia, for example, has a long-standing tradition of Judaism that dates back centuries, with practices and beliefs that align closely with those of other Jewish groups, yet have unique cultural elements that reflect their African heritage. Similarly, the presence of Jews in North Africa, particularly in countries like Morocco and Tunisia, showcases a blend of Jewish and Arab cultures, illustrating the diverse tapestry of Jewish identity across the globe. Moreover, the transatlantic slave trade and the subsequent migration patterns led to the emergence of a unique Afro-Jewish identity in the Americas. Many enslaved Africans who were brought to the New World carried with them various religious beliefs, some of which were influenced by Judaism. In the United States, the presence of Black Jews can be traced back to the early colonial period, where individuals and communities began to embrace Jewish practices and traditions, while also navigating the complexities of their African heritage. In contemporary society, the discussion around Black Jews has gained more visibility, with organizations and communities advocating for the recognition and inclusion of Black individuals within the broader Jewish narrative. This movement emphasizes the importance of acknowledging the diverse backgrounds of Jews and challenges the often monolithic portrayal of Jewish identity in mainstream discourse. It highlights the need for greater understanding and acceptance of the multifaceted nature of Jewish identity, which includes a significant number of individuals who identify as Black. Furthermore, the intersectionality of race and religion within the context of Jewish identity raises important questions about belonging, representation, and the historical narratives that have often marginalized certain groups. The experiences of Black Jews serve as a reminder of the need for inclusivity and the celebration of diversity within the Jewish community. As conversations around race and identity continue to evolve, it is crucial to acknowledge and honor the rich history of Black Jews and their contributions to the broader Jewish narrative. In conclusion, the exploration of who the real Jews are cannot be confined to a singular narrative. It is essential to recognize the diverse identities that exist within the Jewish community, particularly the significant role of Black individuals and communities. By embracing this complexity, we can foster a more inclusive understanding of Jewish identity that honors the rich tapestry of experiences and histories that define what it means to be Jewish in today's world.